Hello, everyone, and welcome to All Things Politics. I'm your host, Bub. Let's get right to it. Donald Trump, the President of the United States, has begun to enact what a lot are calling a police state. Fascism is in full effect here in these United States. It can be seen in states like Minnesota, California, Texas, New York, and others. What the public is starting to see in terms of his actions or his policies and those constitutional laws he's starting to violate or disregard altogether is kind of alarming to the public, to say the least. Um, just recently, Don Lemon was released from federal custody after being arrested for violations of the First Amendment, or so that's alleged. Don Lemon did a piece on his show, The Don Lemon Show, and he spoke out about what is happening with the U.S. government in terms of the violations it enacts or is committing against the American people. And he wanted to send out a rallying cry to journalists all over the country to now stand up against this tyrannical behavior. That being said, for a lot of us, we've seen Donald Trump's actions as more than threatening. To a lot of us, it seems that Donald Trump's actions are becoming more uh, tyrannical, dictatorship like, if you will. Um, it's no surprise, again, to a lot of us, these behaviors of the Trump administration, not just Trump, but those he have encamped around him, that they are weaponizing the United States government against the people. To give some validity or to shed a little more light on this, I want to share a clip with everyone. And this pertains to what we see going on here in this country. And this clip is "The Wolf is at the Door." Um, Hayes warns Trump is building a police state.
Tens of thousands of people marched across the country today in Minneapolis, Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, Cleveland, many of them braving sub-zero temperatures to protest the police state that Donald Trump is attempting to build before our eyes. A police state uses its power to crush dissent, to terrorize the populace, to force them to submit to its political will. It is a perversion of the policing power. And for the past year, we have watched the federal government, particularly the law enforcement aspects of it, transform under Trump.
Well, I think that, and I'm going to jump in right quick. I think now it's only becoming a problem because journalists are being assaulted. Their First Amendment rights are being violated. And so now this is really, really becoming an issue. Had journalists stood up to Trump, not in the first year of his second term, but when Donald Trump ran the first time and did his first 4 years, his first term, had they stood up to Donald Trump, then we may not be in this position.
Armed federal agents push into communities into accepting his wins or suffering the consequences. We have now masked secret police who have shot two nonviolent protesters dead in the streets while people recorded on their camera phones, Renee Good and Alex Pretty. We still don't even know the identities of some of those agents who work for the government who shot and killed them. Instead, today, we got the President of the United States calling the man who was shot and killed on the street a, quote, agitator and perhaps insurrectionist. MS Now is now reporting that ICE is planning to move into Ohio next week to target thousands of Haitian migrants, thousands of whom received explicit permission from the government to stay and to work. So this is not stopping. Those masked agents are still grabbing citizens, taking their pictures and entering them into a database, then confronting them on the streets and calling them by their name. Today, multiple current and former officials revealed to the New York Times that ICE is using two facial recognition programs in Minnesota and using cell phone and social media tools to monitor people's online activity and potentially hack into phones. And Agents are tapping into a database built by the data analytics company Palantir that combines government and commercial data to identify real-time locations for individuals they are pursuing.
Here's a hot take. If you have a message inside you that people are meant to hear, it'll never make the impact that it truly.
Today, they topped it all off by coming for the journalists.
Well, again, this is something a lot of us have been well aware of in terms of the government and how it functions when it is displeased or with a certain segment or demographic of society. We've been known that the United States has always been a police state. This is nothing new. Now, had individuals, other demographics listened to the advice that was given before President Trump started his second term, or while he was campaigning to have a second term, we probably wouldn't be in this situation right now. However, now we're here. Now we're in this situation where we have a president who is a dictator, who is a megalomaniac to boot, who is using the federal government to police the people. This all could have been avoided. Again, we're at this juncture or this stage in society where society as a whole has to decide what it will do with a president like Donald J. Trump and the federal power he has backing him.
Feds arrested 4 people, including former CNN anchor Don Lemon and an award-winning independent journalist, Georgia Fort, in connection with an anti-ICE protest earlier this month that interrupted a service at a church where one of the pastors is also an ICE field director.
Donald Trump, he has people in religious institutions, educational institutions, financial institutions, any institution you could think of that helps prop up this government or this country. Donald Trump has people planted there. And this is what people are missing. People are missing this. They're about to start rearing their heads because he's going to send a call out for his supporters to stand up and fight back. What is this going to lead to? Where does this take us? Is this the start of a civil war in this country? I don't think it remains to be seen. I think that we need to prepare for that outcome possibly occurring.
In fact, reporter Georgia Fort was awoken in the dead of night by a knock on her door from masked DEA agents, the Drug Enforcement Agency. Why are they there?
Why is the Drug Enforcement Agency at a journalist's home in the middle of the night? It's not getting tricky. It's for a lot of us, it's getting scary. It's getting real for a lot of you.
There. As they waited at her doorstop and looked in her windows, she posted this message to social media.
I wanted to alert the public that agents are at my door right now. This is all stemming from the fact that I filmed a protest as a member of the media. It's hard to understand how we have a constitution, constitutional rights, when you can just be arrested for being a member of the press. We've seen all these violations. All right, you guys, I gotta go. They're knocking. Yep, she's coming, right?
I think part of the problem, again, has to do with journalism and the journalists who are a part of what they would call the fourth estate. Journalists have not been doing their jobs, plain and simple. They haven't catered to the welfare and the well-being of the people. Instead, they've catered to the welfare and the well-being of the government and big corporations. They're hired by these media conglomerates, and they are dictated to what stories they can write about, what stories they cannot. They're told how to paint, most of the time, innocent people in a bad light. They're told not to say or speak about specific information about corrupt officials, corrupt business people. You know, the journalists are a part of the problem. Donald Trump knows this. This is why he's been calling them fake media all this time. This is not by mistake. Journalists have played a role in this country's demise by not sticking to the creed of what a journalist is supposed to do. It's supposed to inform the people, speak truth to power. They have not been doing that. Only now we see that because journalists are now under attack just as well as an American citizen.
Little context here. Last year, the former Speaker of the State House of Minnesota was shot and killed, assassinated by a man who showed up at her door pretending to be law enforcement. So just put that in your head. So then Fort, the vice president of the National Association of Black Journalists in Minnesota, who was one of two reporters in the courtroom when George Floyd's killer was sentenced, was taken away in the cold by those same masked, kitted out DEA agents. The feds are claiming that Don Lemon and Ford were agitators of the church protest who conspired to, quote, injure, oppress, threaten, and intimidate multiple persons, including the clergy, staff, and congregants, depriving them of their constitutional right to free religion. I'm not making that up. That is the claim here. But as you can see for yourself, and we've been doing a lot of see for yourself recently because of the lies that emanate from this administration, here's footage of...
Again, you know, it's crazy to think that journalism or journalists are now only just speaking up because they perceive to be under attack. The people have been under attack by not just the Trump administration, let's be honest. You know, journalists have sat back for decades and watched atrocities be committed, watched people be wrongly convicted or persecuted or murdered, and have not done the job of a true journalist, told the truth, called people out on corruption, you know.
Don Lemon in that church during that protest.
We're not part of the activists, but we're here just reporting on them. So I'm just going to be as respectful as possible. I'm not here to intimidate anybody. I'm just here to chronicle and to get some answers.
Since that protest nearly 2 weeks ago, Donald Trump's Department of Justice has been trying to charge Lemon. In fact, last week, a federal magistrate judge and an appeals court rejected the charges as baseless. I mean, again, we said this a lot on this show. This basically never happens. Right? Federal magistrate judges never knock the feds back on this sort of thing. And then they're never, ever appealed. And then it's certainly not the case that appellate court rejects it. But Lemon predicted back then that they weren't finished with them.
I dare you to let me build you a completely free e-commerce store.
I know the Trump administration doesn't have a healthy respect for journalism or journalists because they attack journalists at every measure. And they do that because they know the truth is not on their side.
The Trump administration does that because they know journalists are afraid of him. And journalists, they have bent the knee. They have succumbed to the pressures, to the persecution of the Trump administration. Again, not just the Trump administration, let's be clear. All of our United States presidents have intimidated or have coerced not just the journalists, but media outlets to not do certain stories, pieces, exposés, to not speak about corruption or the faults of the government. Journalists are just as much blame, you know, for this than Donald Trump and his administration.
Side, the Constitution is not on their side. Donald Trump lies more than he breathes. This is not a victory lap for me because it's not over. They're going to try again, and they're going to try again. And guess what? Here I am. Keep trying. That's not going to stop me from being a journalist. You're not going to diminish my voice.
This morning, they arrested Lemon in Los Angeles as he prepared to cover the Grammy Awards. All the defendants were arraigned in court today. Afterwards, Georgia Fort emerged from the courthouse and was thronged by supporters, and Lemon struck a defiant tone.
I've spent my entire career covering the news. I will not stop now. In fact, there is no more important time than right now, this very moment, for a free and independent media that shines a light on the truth and holds those in power accountable.
Donald Trump sending government forces after critics.
Let's hope he keeps that commitment, that promise he just made. And not only that, let's hope that most journalists will follow suit and start speaking truth to power, which all it does, it serves the people. The people need to be informed of what's going on in the government, and the media is that bridge. Journalists are those who help the public, the people, the citizens in this country to cross that bridge of understanding in terms of what's going on in their government. Let's hope they keep that promise.
Opponents, even those who are completely nonpartisan, but he views as insufficiently obedient, across a whole array of institutions. Today, Trump announced a politically connected replacement for the Fed chair, Jerome Powell, even though Powell's term runs for another 5 months. And also, he is, remember, still being criminally investigated by Trump's DOJ. Then, of course, there was Wednesday's FBI raid of the Fulton County Election Office in Georgia, where they took boxes and boxes and boxes of ballots. That, of course, office and that county and that state, the boogeyman of Trump's 2020 election lies. Feds hauling 700 boxes full of voter ballots in an operation apparently overseen by Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, who has no law enforcement powers, but who is apparently using her access to become a leading MAGA election truther with the full force of the federal government behind her. Again, all this is law enforcement. Law enforcement. Coming from an administration that has no qualms about breaking the law when it comes to just about anything, including releasing the Epstein files. Today, 42 days after they were legally required to release all the files, they decided to get around to it. Deputy Attorney Todd Blanche, Attorney General Todd Blanche, Trump defense attorney who still views the president as his client, according to officials he's worked with, announced the dump of 3 million new Epstein documents. Now, Todd Blanche is the same guy, remember, last year who kicked off the whole controversy when he wrote the memo saying, we've looked at every single file and we've concluded there's nothing further to see here. There's no client list. No one else is implicated. We're shutting it all down. That Todd Blanche, the one who signed his name to that document saying we have already looked at it all, announced they got around, I guess, to looking at the documents. He said the delays were to protect the victims. They weren't protecting Trump. And now their job here is done.
I tell you what, again, it should be, there should be no doubt in anyone's mind what's going on in this country. But this has been brewing for a long time. And in fact, it's been brewing way before Trump got in office. We've been in a police state for a few decades now. Let's be clear on that. There's no reason to think that because Donald J. Trump is the president, his second term as president, all this just come out of nowhere. It's Donald Trump, you know. That's not the case. This has been going on for a long time. It's a playbook. This is the playbook. All right. Donald Trump is just the face of what's going on. Those who are really responsible, those who really want control over what the people say and think, what they do as well, are the ones behind the scenes, are the ones we see very little of in public, but we know that they are the power behind the machine. To label this now as a police state, I think it's just so irresponsible for media to do this. A lot of us have been known that this government has always been a police state. It has always been a police state. It's nothing new to us. But now, because it's something new to you, let's see what happens or what comes of this, what becomes of this. Let's see if journalism actually grows a spine. See how that turns out. I'm your host, Bub. This has been All Things Politics. Like, share, subscribe to this channel so that we can continue to bring you, the public, news like this. Take care of yourselves and each other.